G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. I thought I'd do a quick video today, just summarising some of the trade stuff that's swirling around a little bit. As time goes on throughout the year, contract talk will start to ramp up. We're still early days in the season, but nonetheless, a very interesting rumour regarding West Coast has popped up that I thought was worth discussing. And, there's a number of players we're already linked to, and this is the earliest I've ever seen West Coast linked to players, other than the obvious WA ones that want to come home. A new one that's come across my desk, my metaphorical desk, and everyone else's iPhones, I'd imagine, is Jack Graham from Richmond. Now, Jack Graham is obviously a multiple premiership player at Richmond and has made a name for himself sort of as a quality forward mid who applies pressure. Not massively high production, but qualifies as a free agent this year. And Richmond, I think, are in the position where they're going to be looking at what pieces they have to shuffle around and get some youth in, which is something we can relate to. But this could be something that's mutually beneficial for us, and I am kind of excited by this potential rumour. We've also been linked to Liam Baker, and there's a few other players, or at least one other player I'll mention that I'm hoping we go for here. But yeah, so it's been reported by John Ralph that the Tigers might be in a fight to retain Graham, and he has been linked to West Coast, which is a surprise because Jack Graham is South Australian, and we generally are linked to Western Australian players. That is changing. The landscape of AFL trades and free agency has changed over the last, I think 9 years. 9 years ago, we recruited Jack Redden, which was a bit of a surprise, another South Australian player. And we got Jaden Hunt last year. We got Matthew Flynn. Even though, none of these are necessarily enormous profile players, Jack Redden ended up being a fantastic player in our premiership team and was a decent player at Brisbane. And there's also some other types like Giles and Vardy, and Hickey wasn't West Australian as well. But this is a relatively high profile player, not an absolute A-grader. I don't want to over milk this, but nonetheless a quality player in my opinion who qualifies for free agency. And I do really think this decision would make sense for us, and I'm really hoping it pans out. So Graham is, I think he was drafted as a midfielder, later pick. I want to say he played in a premiership in like his sixth game in 2017, and I think he did pretty well in the Norm Smith that year. Not that that's super relevant now, but just some fun facts about Jack Graham. I think he's always been a fairly quality player. A little bit like Jamie Cripps, and probably a little bit underrated for what he does. And yeah, he averages somewhere between 15 and 18 possessions a game. He's not going to be a massive ball winner, whether it's for us or somebody else. But he is a quality pressure player, and he doesn't mind the goals. Doesn't kick a lot of goals per year, but he can be quite prolific in front of goal when given that opportunity. So I think it comes down to role that he plays as well. But yeah, consider the context here. Graham has been, talked about as a potential player to move from Richmond for a number of years now. It was definitely the case last year, and I reckon it's happened before. And I think last year he went as far as to meet Ken Hinkley at Port Adelaide. So that is a threat for us actually getting this done, is Jack Graham deciding he not only wants to go home, but, you could easily make the case that both South Australian clubs are better destinations for him from an on-field point of view as well. Like Port Adelaide are in the thick of a window. It'd be a hard sell to get him to come over to WA if Port Adelaide are seriously interested, unless we can, trump their offer financially. And Adelaide as well, I think, have a good young list, even though, they've been up and down this year. As I film this, they've just beaten Port Adelaide in the showdown, ironically. But either way, I think that will be a tough sell for us. Yeah, we got Harley Reid. Yeah, we're a good, strong club, but I think both Adelaide clubs are as well. But regardless, I think this is something that I'm hopeful we really have a dip at. The reason being, primarily, is that this guy is a free agent. So that's why it contrasts for me for Liam Baker. So if you're unaware, Liam Baker has played 7 years at Richmond, doesn't qualify as a free agent, and so a trade has to be facilitated to get Liam Baker on our list. For clarity as well, there are conflicting reports from a number of different journos who suggest that Baker is more likely to go to West Coast in some areas, and others are saying he's more likely to go to Fremantle. To be honest, I think everyone is guessing at the moment. It's too early to tell. There seems to be this weird connection with West Coast. I'm not really too sure. It could just be that, we've been putting in the groundwork a little bit longer than Freo, or we could have that wrong, and Fremantle might be the actual front runners there. But the way these two intersect will be interesting. So we do have Richmond's list manager, Matthew Clark, who might have a relationship with both of these boys, and that might give us the inside lane on getting them. So the Liam Baker one makes me a little bit uneasy because not being a free agent means we have to give up some draft collateral, and we don't already have a third rounder this year. So I think Liam Baker's worth more than what our pick 2 will be, which is likely to be in the late 20s again. It could even be as late as 30. That is too raw a deal for Richmond there. But there has been a suggestion as well with the free agency rules, right? So we could isolate, let's say we hypothetically get Richmond to agree to pick 28 for Liam Baker, even though that's a stretch. We could do what Essendon, I think St Kilda did last year, and offer Jack Graham a pretty sizable contract as a free agent. Trigger some genuine compensation for Richmond where they get a good deal for letting Jack Graham walk to West Coast. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like because the CBA has changed, but if we can trigger something that gets Richmond a pretty significant compensation for Jack Graham, there might be a bit more lenient on the Liam Baker deal as well. So again, I don't even know to what extent that's within the rules, but I'm sure it absolutely happens. And so if there's a world where we get Liam Baker for our second round pick, I do think there is merit to this. And the reason being is they're both in that 25 to 26 bracket. Now I know Jake Waterman's having an outstanding year, but the other players in that bracket for us on our list is quite dire. And that might not seem like a massive problem now because we've got Elliot Yeo firing, we've got Tim Kelly playing decent football, we've got Jaden Hunt playing alright, Jeremy McGovern's outstanding form, Tom Barras still with a number of years left. But fast forward in 2 to 3 years, we want some 28 and 29-year-olds on the list because, not to throw shade at North Melbourne, but that is exactly what I think is the biggest problem at that club, is a lack of players towards the deep end of their prime. It's a lack of senior support, and we want to get some of these guys in, I reckon, to help branch that out. And if we can do that in a way that doesn't compromise our draft position, like Liam Baker for a late 20s pick would be an absolute steal. I'm against getting Liam Baker if it means we have to split our first round pick and say get pick 8 and 18 and trade 18 for Baker. I could live with that, but it's not my preference by any stretch. If there's a way we can get both, that could strengthen us. Maybe not in a game-changing kind of way, but I do think it strengthens us over the next 3 to 5 years if we get both of these players in. If there is a scenario where we just get Jack Graham and don't get Liam Baker, I still think that ticks the boxes and you can take those draft picks. Because there's another player I want to mention as well, in Jed Businger, that I really hope we are monitoring this. So there's a big footy rumour that Jed Businger has told the Western Bulldogs he's not signing a new contract until the end of the season. I don't know if that's true, so I'm going to put my hand up and say that is a big footy rumour. But if true, that opens the door for us, and I do think that he is a potentially important target for us. We need a young key back. He's a former first-round draft pick. Honestly, if you give me a choice between trading pick 25 for Liam Baker or Jed Businger, I think the more sensible thing is to go for the young key back. Sure, there's more risk involved, but I think, behind Barras and McGovern, we got Harry Edwards and Bazzo. I think this would alleviate some of the pressure of our growing key back situation. I know that there's Callum Jamieson as well, but still hardly proven, and I think Businger on talent probably presents as the best prospect out of those. We also saw Sam Draper say in his podcast, in his opinion, if Beveridge doesn't leave, there's going to be an exodus from the Western Bulldogs, so that could open the door for us to maybe sneak in a really good value trade for Jed Businger. I know he hasn't played a game, but I do think that is a good, sensible option for us. So if we come away from this trade period with, say, Jack Graham as a free agent, hypothetically, again, I doubt we're the favourites for Graham. I do want to make that clear, but we're talking in hypotheticals now. But Jack Graham, Jed Businger, and say, maybe we then split what is now currently pick 4 for 9 and 14. I don't know how realistic that is. Obviously, we're a long way out from the draft, but if we take 2 first-round picks, sign Jack Graham as a free agent, trade our second rounder for Jed Businger, and maybe take a 5th pick, towards the back end of the draft, maybe go mature age or whatever, then I think that could be a highly productive trade and free agency period. So I'm intrigued by this. I'm pleased to see we're being proactive with it. I think it'll be a great win for us. Like I said, I know there may be comments, and understandably so, about Jack Graham's production. Doesn't get a lot of footy. For context, though, I looked at some centre bounce stats. Jack Graham attempted 6% of centre bounces for Richmond last year, so he's playing predominantly forward or on the wing. This season, he's only played 3 games, had slightly more of the footy. He's attending 40% of centre bounces. So again, I think he's done 2 fairly significantly injuries this year, soft tissue ones, which means he's barely played, and when he has played, he probably hasn't been fully fit. But we're looking at a guy who averages 4 to 6 tackles a game, not bad in front of goal, high pressure mid as well, which I think is going to prove useful to us if we're able to get that one. So long story short, I hope we get a real good sniff at Jack Graham. That's a weird way to phrase it. I'm indifferent on Liam Baker. It would be great to get both, but I would prefer Jed Businger. And, maybe we take still 2 first-round picks like we did in 2022 but by splitting the pick. So exciting times ahead. Again, I'm more thinking about this Essendon game. I'm filming this right before the Essendon game, and so you're going to see this right after, and my summary of the Essendon game will probably come out Monday Perth time because I'm travelling through that period. But for now, let me know in the comments, guys, what you think of this trade rumour. Appreciate you watching. I appreciate you being subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.